guess you didn't realize it, but I'm talking here. Excuse me. Well, maybe you didn't realize this, but hey, I'm talking here. Hello, folks. Steve Rizzo here, and welcome to my podcast. Hey, I'm talking here, and we have a wonderful show for you today. And I'll bring up the special guest Doug Wing in a little bit, and I'll bring up my team in a little bit. But first, let me explain to you about the show for you newcomers here. This is an entertaining show about empower. You can tell I'm a speaker. It's about empowerment. It's a show that can take you to a better place personally and professionally. And in my view, that is the ultimate success. And this show is brought to you by Conversations with Bob, which is my fairly new book, which is getting wonderful reviews on Amazon. And if you haven't purchased a copy, I suggest that you do, because it's getting great reviews, I must say. And I will promise you this about the book. After you've read the book from cover to cover, you will realize how much power you have over every aspect of your life. And as I said, I'm excited about our new guest. And Eric Bam will not be here this evening. He has other things that came up, family issues. And but he probably more than likely will be here on the next episode. But right now, let me bring up my team, in which I could never do this without, because they make the show what it is. My co-host, Debbie Bettendorf. Debbie, why don't you come on up here and say hello to the people?
Oh, hey. Great to be here.
Hi, Bruce, I didn't introduce you yet. You're supposed to wait.
I got the order wrong. I thought you were going to introduce me first, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, because he's actually the great Oz, the one behind the scenes doing all the work. So, yeah, I could see.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
There you go.
Remember that, the Great and Powerful Oz? Remember that? I love that guy.
Actually, I just saw the play here in Chicago called Wicked.
Yeah, I love Wicked.
Well, bust my buttons. Come on in. Come on in. That's a horse of a different color.
Oh, I've seen it twice. I love Wicked. It is wicked.
Hey, I'm talking here. I'm talking here.
Put him up.
That was good, Bruce. That's pretty ingenious of you.
See, he's the great Oz. But see, now everyone sees him. He's not behind the big curtain.
Right.
Yeah, I know. Ooh. I know. I absolutely love the title of this episode's show. I really do. Relationships and how it affects you personally and professionally. I mean, but this is something that can go in any direction, because let's face it, our whole entire lives are based on relationships. But I think a lot of us don't realize how much they affect us. A lot of people say they're successful because they did this and they did that. And very few people, I think, don't think that there are other people that really catapulted them to where they are. And sometimes you don't realize it. It's a certain connection that you made, or a piece of information that somebody gave you that you took and you used, but you never even said thank you to that person. And without meeting that person, you might not have had that information to do what needed to be done. And I think it's important for all of us to sometimes sit back and realize where you are at this point in your life. And if you feel you're very successful, realize where that came from. And it sometimes is these little silent partners, that I call them, that we have in our lives, that come into our lives, that we learn something from. And we realize, as you look back and reflect, you go, wow, yeah, that person introduced me to this person. And if that person didn't introduce me to this person, I wouldn't have gotten this far on this part of my life.
Right.
You know, and that's all part of relationships. And I think it's very easy for all of us to take that for granted. And that's why I'm really excited that we have the relationship expert, that I labeled him. And he's going to come on and he's going to start this whole thing off talking about relationships, personally and professionally, and how they really do affect our lives. I'm going to be talking about his book and how he came about to write that. So without any further ado, let us bring on Mr. Doug Wing.
There you go.
Hello.
Actually,
How are you guys
people
doing?
on
Jake?
screen here met someone else through a relationship, because you didn't meet Debbie directly and you didn't meet Doug directly, although I don't know how that was possible since you both hang out with Jeffrey Gitomer.
Yeah. No, but that's true. That's a good point. I didn't meet Debbie directly. It was like I saw her when I did my Academy Zoom thing for Ken Walls, and I just focused in on her because I noticed she was really tentatively getting what I was saying. I mean, I could see the facial expressions. I'm very good at doing that.
Yeah.
And something inside me said, I have to connect with this person. We did, and we became really good friends. And now she's my co-host on my show, and we're working on another show together soon. And that's all part of relationships. Am I right, Doug?
Yes, you're exactly correct.
Yeah.
I look at all of us here on this screen, and we either met through Jeffrey Gitomer or Ken Walls, and that's how I met Debbie, was through Ken Walls. And then Steve, I think you've got a relationship with Jeffrey and Ken.
Yes.
So it's interesting how, either through Mastermind or through the Grow Live Academy, we developed these friendships and relationships, and then met Bruce. I think, Bruce, I was on your show as well.
A while back, yes.
A while back, yeah. So
I think we met through, through our organization, our little mastermind group.
Yeah. And so, and then Debbie had a co-host on her show. Was it Lynn that you were on the show with before?
Yeah. Well, Lynn and I had a show. You were on her show, and then I had you on my individual show. We just had you come back again. We enjoyed it so much.
See, folks, that's what I'm saying. That's how it works. And you just never know who's going to come into your life. And by the way, everyone, please share this. And just in the comments when they start coming in, share this with friends, family, everyone that you know, because our goal is to get the message out. That's why we have these things. We have this so, you can get information that can take you to a better place personally and professionally. So, Doug, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to do what it is that you do? Tell us about your book and your story.
Okay, we can do that. Yeah, for sure. I grew up and with a really interesting father, a very ambitious father, a man who had unbelievable confidence. And I actually worked for one company, his company, for 47 years. I didn't work any other place. I just worked for one company for the entire time. So I was 10 years old when I started working for my father. And wow, I learned so much during that time. One thing that he was really good about was that, of course, we were young. My brother was 12, I was 10. But he was very smart and had us work our way up the company, starting with, really menial tasks, I guess you would call them, cleaning the building, sweeping parking lots, and then gradually working our way up into manufacturing in this company, into customer service, into sales eventually, and then to upper management. And then my brother and I ended up taking over the company after my father retired. But I'm really, really grateful for my father, who I think what really helped us to be successful as we got older is that, number one, we knew every position in the business. And also it gave us an appreciation for the employees that work there and for the work that they put in, especially those that have to build products. And it did this for years and years. But my father was really, really good at relationships. And a lot of people used to say he didn't really build ladders. He built people in his company. And then the people that he built really helped him to build the ladders and to build an amazing company. And so I think that's one thing that I really learned from my dad was that he built people. And of course, a lot of people know about Little Giant. It's one of the most iconic brands, around today. And, he took this. When my father started the company, Steve, he actually was at his first trade show, and the largest ladder company in the world. The two brothers, walked up to my father and said, "Hal Wing, you are an idiot. You are never going to be successful. We could have had this ladder years ago. You're going to fall flat on your face." And they laughed at him right then and there in his trade show. And my dad said that was my fuel, right? To to prove to these guys that I could be successful. And that was his drive. And it was really interesting throughout his career. These guys, these brothers from, I'll say it because they sold the business, but a company called Warner Ladder, they ended up trying to buy my dad's company, our company, like 3 or 4 times, and we would never sell to these guys. And I had a really interesting experience after my father had passed away. One of those brothers walks up to me at a trade show. He had since retired, this brother, and he said, "We never thought your dad would be successful, but," he said, "he proved us wrong, but we have the utmost respect for your father, Hal Wing." And he said, "If you tell anybody this, I will deny it. But the only ladder I have in my house is a little giant."
Really? That is cool that he did that, though.
Yeah.
That is wow. Wow, that's really cool.
I thought it was really neat. But anyway, just had a lot of great experiences working with my father. And that is not always easy, working in a family business and working for your dad. And but I did have a couple of relatives that got fired a few times. And I was always grateful that I had a couple of older brothers, because I just kind of watched what they did, and then I didn't make those same mistakes that a few of those guys did. But it was a great experience. I had a great career. I loved it. I absolutely loved what I did. We sold the finest, quality products in the world, and we sold it 2 or 3 times higher than our competitors, and it was not easy, but our quality really is what carried us forward in our innovation during my career. It was wonderful, but it was great to watch my dad. Like I said, my dad kind of grew up as an underdog. He was a small guy. He had really bad acne growing up, and kids would tease him and make fun of him. And I think as my dad got successful, he always looked out for the underdogs, and he always hired people that other people wouldn't. But he had this unique gift. I call it a gift. He had this ability to see people, not in their current situation, but he saw the potential in them, and then he would hire them, and he would mentor them and help them to really grow as humans, men and women. And he was really a master builder of people, and he was really, really great at relationships, whether it was with our employees, whether it was with our vendors, or our customers. He was just really, really an unbelievable guy with to build relationships. He was great.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's a great story, and it says a lot about you that you're such an observer of your father, and not only that, you took it on to be part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And you're taking that into your life, which is wow, that's a gift. Good for you. That's pretty amazing.
Oh.
So your success then, as far as sales goes, would you say then that knowing people is crucial to sales today?
Yes, I think so. I really feel like you've got to get to know people. You have to get to know them personally, and also you've got to know about what they need as far as the products or services you provide. A lot of times you go in, you meet a salesman, they come into your office or your company, and man, salesmen, they talk too much. They don't listen. They just, especially when you go into a car go try to buy a car. I think car
please.
salesmen,
Oh God, yeah.
one. But yeah, it's really important to listen and then to serve and help people. And that's what I did throughout my career was as I would go in and develop a relationship with someone and then just try to help them. And there were a lot of situations where they would say, well, we need this product, and Little Giant didn't make it. And I would just go try to find, there were a lot of times I would go find another product that I didn't make and help them with that, even though we didn't get the sale or get the business. And I think that really goes a long ways when you just have that attitude of, hey, I'm here to help you and serve you and to take care of the needs that you have. And when you have that kind of an attitude, I found out that you're the first person people call when you have the relationship and you're there to help them. And so that's kind of what we did. And it really served us well. And we had several customers that bought products from us for 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, just they were loyal to us. And in fact, the number one, the very first distributor we ever had, we didn't sell through distribution. My dad went out to trade shows. We got up to like 300 or 400 trade shows a year, and we would do toe-to-toe sales and stand there for 8-10 hours a day and just demonstrate ladders all day long and sell them to people. And our first distributor in LA walked up to my dad and said, "Hey, I want to sell these out of my store." And my dad goes, "We don't do that." And he just told him, "No, we don't do that." And then the next time he came to LA, next time we showed ladders in LA, this gentleman came up and gave my dad an order for 300 ladders.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, "Oh, you're serious? You want to sell these?" And so that's how they created a distributor program. And he is still selling our ladders to this day. That was, gosh, 1970, in the 70s, he bought these ladders, and now he's still selling ladders for us. So, you know, and those types of relationships, I mean, he's one of my best friends, and we still, you know, when I go to LA, we see each other, we do things together outside of the business. I mean, we both love cars and do those types of things. And so I think if you can develop relationships with people, you know, then the business just kind of comes naturally.
Do you think, though, today, and I want to word this properly because I don't want people to get the wrong idea, that technology, emails, social media is desensitizing people? Do you think that it's taken away from that personal touch, that I don't know, the human condition seems to be dissipating more and more? And I'll give you an example. When I started out in this business, how I got most of my work is that if I was performing, if I was speaking in San Diego, I would go to a speakers bureau that was in San Diego, and I would call them up a month or two in advance, and I would have lunch for them, and I'd meet the whole team. A lunch would be served. Somebody would come in and, you know, just hand out the food, and we'd talk, and I would tell them about me. Just tell them talking about Steve Rizzo, and they would talk about themselves. So they got to know me as a person. So when I left there, I left with a great feeling. They were left with a good feeling, and a lot of work came from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been taken away today, because most speakers bureaus are not together in the office anymore. They're all working alone by themselves at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that personalization, I really can't do that anymore. Not all the time. There are still, like I'll be doing it this January with a speakers bureau in Raleigh, Durham, because I happen to be speaking there. And I told them, they said they would make sure that they get everyone together at a place, so, you know, we can get together. But it's really, you're buying that personality. That's a part of it. The key to selling, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe I'm right, is you want to feel good about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The person that you're selling to, that's your number one job, is to make them feel good. One of the ways you make them feel good is don't even talk about the business. Talk about life. Talk about certain other aspects of your life before you start talking about business. And that's what meeting with people does. And I believe we have just become a little bit more desensitized as a result of that. What are your views on that?
I agree 100%. And I think I think the blame really goes to two things. Number one, these little things right here.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And especially with our younger people. I mean, I'll go into a restaurant and I'll actually see like a couple, and the guy's looking at his phone and his date is looking at her phone.
Oh.
And even older couples, I mean, they're not even paying. Here they are, they're on a date, they're married.
Yeah.
And he's got his nose in his phone and she's got her nose in her phone. And I think that's part of it. And then I think the other thing that really messed people up is COVID, and where people were locked down and separated for long periods of time. Even the fact that some people, you know, most people were doing church through Zoom, were doing meetings through Zoom. I mean, even Little Giant went and built 2 studios, and they were doing Little Giant live presentations because nobody was traveling anymore. But even though I don't own the company anymore, I've talked to a few of the salesmen that still work there, and they said people are tired of doing these live Zoom presentations. They want to get back to interaction at their office.
Yep.
And be able to keep those relationships. You know, that's really what what made the business, is having those relationships and having visits, being able to see and touch the products, and go out with their sales guys or whatever and visit their customers. And so I think that people are really tired of this, and they're ready just to go back to, kind of the way it was, even though maybe it won't ever be the same way. But really, I can see that people are really hurting, and they need interaction with people. And I'm real worried about our younger people, where they don't have the communication skills. And I have a son that's 28, and if he wants to talk to me, he'll text me, Just today, I actually, a Ford dealer who is ordering some parts for one of my cars, he texts me and says, your parts are in. When do you want to do it? Well, I'm driving down the road. So I pick up the phone and try to call him. He doesn't answer his phone. And then I ended up pulling over and saying, hey, give me a phone call. I mean, I don't want to talk about this on a text. So he calls me back and we set up the appointment. But I see this, I do see this where we're losing the ability to communicate with people.
Yep.
Picking up the phone. I still love to pick up the phone and talk to my friends and people who used to be customers. And I love the interaction, but we're losing that somewhat. And that kind of concerns me, to where people, send me an email or just text me,
Yeah. That's my point. You have people saying, I have 3,000 friends on Facebook. Really? They're your friends? Seriously? Ask one of your friends for $1,000 on Facebook and see if they'll give it to you.
See how many.
Yeah, exactly. But, there's something to be said about technology, too. Like, you take Zoom. Debbie and I tried to get together at least once a week in Zoom. And one of the things I like about her is her sensitivity. And it was the last time we were on Zoom, we're talking. And then she just went back like this. And she said, now, why don't you tell me what's wrong? You know what I mean? She felt it. That's a relationship.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When someone that you're working with and you're talking business can pull back and say to you, now, why don't you tell me what's wrong? And it was amazing that she picked up on it. Of course, I felt better that I said what I was saying, but those little tidbits, those little things can go an incredibly long way in all relationships. And I'm with you, Doug. Sometimes it concerns me that we're losing that. I'm mentoring 2 young women in their teens, late teens. And the last time I was with them, they had their phones.
Yeah.
And I just said, okay, that's the end of this. And they said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm talking to you. I'm giving you information. I'm not charging you for this. You asked for my help and I'm helping you. And you are on the phone and you're communicating with someone. And they didn't get it at first.
Right. They don't.
The way they're raised.
Right.
And I said, no, if you want one-on-one, I said, this is what it has to be. If you want to get together, you don't bring your phones. I don't want you to just keep it wherever you're going to keep it, but do not take it out. Otherwise, this will not work. And they got it.
People are doing that subconsciously.
Excuse me?
People are doing it subconsciously. I mean, basically, you're in the middle of a conversation, you sparked a thought, and then you go to pick up your phone, you totally tune out of the conversation that you're currently having.
Yeah. And it can be real rude, like if we're having a conversation, I pick up my phone and start texting somebody or whatever. I mean, that can be, you got to be real careful with that. But, I think all of us grew up when families would sit down and have dinner together, and we didn't have phones and we didn't have email back then. But I know a lot of people now, some of my friends that have kids, teenagers and stuff, they actually take their phones and they put them in a basket when it's dinner time. And they're like, we're not looking at our phones. We're going to have a meal together. Yeah. We're actually going to talk. Yeah. And you remember walking in the door and your mom was home and your mom would say, hey, how'd school go? Right. And you had a conversation about it, or with your dad or whoever, your brother or whatever. And, those days are kind of not here anymore.
Back then we had a landline with the long cord.
Yeah.
So like if you were going to have a conversation, it was going to be like with the family, So
yeah. But don't get me wrong. Technology is wonderful. I mean, what we're doing right now is wonderful. And the speed at what we can get, customers' information and we can communicate is great. But there is something to be said about being able to communicate and pick up the phone. And I mean, I text my son, he'll text me, he's 28 years old, or else I'll call him and 10 seconds later, he'll text me, what do you want? And I'm like, I want to talk to you. I want to hear your voice. Answer the phone, and he just wants to text me back. And I'm like, some days I want to hear your voice, not just see your text,
Exactly. It's somebody's birthday or anniversary, and we're texting, "I love you." Pick up the damn phone and call them and tell them. Tell them. Let them hear your voice at least. What is wrong with that?
There's this. I moved from Utah down here, and there's this little couple. They're in their 90s, and I'm not kidding you. They're like 93 years old, husband and wife. They're still alive. My birthday was on October 9th. My phone rings. I look down, and it's them calling me. And every year they call, I answer the phone, and they sing me happy birthday, both of them together.
I love that.
And it is, I mean, can you imagine even if you're not a very good singer, if you called all your friends on their birthday and you sang to them, how much they would, really enjoy that. Just like you said, the thought of, I'm going to call my buddy and see how he's doing today.
Yeah.
And so technology is wonderful. It's great. And we can use it to our advantage, but I still think we need to have the communication of the interaction of talking on the phone. And I think we're losing that with some of these young people.
Yeah. It's not building healthy relationships at all.
And I have something to say about that too, because I have adult children as well. And I know that when we would be talking and they'd pick up their phone and start to, I feel, zone out of what our conversation was. And I would just say, could you repeat what I just said? But, and they'd be like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, it's a little rude. I know mom talks a lot, but wait till I'm done at least, to pick up the phone. But I want to say there's a couple of things I heard you say that really resonated with me, Doug. And that's when you're in the company where the relationships that were built. So when we're talking about relationships here, we're not just talking about relationships like, husband and wife, girlfriends, guys, friends. It's also in the business world. And so I think what your dad did so eloquently, and then you picked up as well, was having that relationship with your customers and the people that work for you. But then your clients, when you would tell them, hey, I don't have what you need, but let me help you find what you do need. That creates a loyalty and a trust. And in any relationship, that has to be present. And your dad just doing that, probably just because that's who he was. It wasn't because he was trying to, manage this. It was probably just because I don't have what you need. Let me help you find what you need, because this is good business and this is a good relationship. So then when people would need something, that's, of course, I would call you, because I'm like, he's going to tell me, or she is going to tell me the truth of where I can go. You guys built a quality business with quality products and quality relationships. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that was really unique about Little Giant was we did little things. My dad implemented these little things, but they made big differences. Like one thing we did that really probably didn't cost our company a lot of money is every year, every employee got their birthday off with pay. It was huge.
That is huge.
And they would get a handwritten birthday card from my father, my brother, myself, the management team. We would sign. I mean, every month we'd have to sign these by hand and write a little something to them. One thing I really loved about my dad, we had 400 employees. He knew every person by name, and he knew something about them. He walked through the back door, not the front door, and he would go around and shake hands and hug people and call them by name. Hey, how's your wife doing? She's been sick. He would know. I don't know how my dad knew all this stuff about it. It took a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
I really tried my best to do what he did, and I got pretty good at it. My brother, on the other hand, he was so hilarious. We'd walk through the shop and he'd go, do they work for us? Yes. Yes, brother. And he'd go, how long? I go, oh, about 10 years. And he was, my brother's a great guy. Don't get me wrong, but I think people really appreciate when you learn their name, you know something about them, and you care about them. And I mean, there was I can tell you guys one story that was really, really, we did some things that nobody does today. We had an employee that walked into our office one time to talk to me and my brother and the CEO of Little Giant. And he said, hey, I'm got myself in a financial pickle. I made some bad decisions. I'm going to lose my house. And I don't know if there's anything you guys can do about it. And we're like in this meeting, the three of us, and I think our CFO was in this meeting, and my dad just pops in. He's retired, but he pops in the office and he says, what's going on? What are you guys talking about? And we're like, oh, we're in our management meeting, but we have this problem with, we'll just call him Bob. We have this problem. Bob came up to us and he made some bad financial decisions, and it looks like he's going to get his house repossessed. And man, it's too bad we can't do anything. And my dad looks at us and said, Bob has been a really good employee. Doesn't he receive quarterly bonuses? And I was like, man, how does my dad remember this? Because he's been retired, but he was so aware and just, he remembered all these things. And we said, yes, he gets these quarterly bonuses. And my dad says, has he been receiving his bonuses every quarter? We go, oh yeah, like clockwork. He receives them. He works hard. He's a great employee. He gets it every time. And I think this was like $70,000 or $80,000 that he wanted to borrow from our company. And my dad goes, give him the money. He'll pay us back. Wow. Now, this Bob, we gave him the money. He was able to keep his house. He paid us back. He hit his bonuses. It took him a couple of years to pay us back. But I'm telling you, he still works for the company, and he is so loyal to our company. And he'll never forget that, and those are the types of things that we did at Little Giant that a lot of companies don't do today. And so I was just so blessed to be around a boss like Hal Wing that just loved people, cared about people, and built people and helped people, and it was incredible. It was an incredible.
That's a great story. You're talking about your dad. This reminds me of my father. I have a brother that's 100% disabled from the Vietnam War. And he was in St. Albans Naval Hospital for 7 months. I'm not going to get into his whole story. It's he's the biggest inspiration of my life. But my dad was a salesman for an electrical supply company. And when my brother was shipped from the USS Hope, which was off the waters of Vietnam, to this hospital in Queens, New York, my mom and dad were at my brother's side every single day. And my brother will tell you today one of the reasons why he was able to thrive with his life, because they were there every day. Every day. He knew that the family was there somehow, some way. My point is that my father's clients, his customers, found out that my brother was wounded, and in St. Albans Naval Hospital in Queens, New York, and my mom and dad were there every day, that these people were calling in orders, calling the company, the head of the company, and saying, I need to order this. My company needs this. I want to make sure that Frank Rizzo gets the commission. Oh, wow. If Frank Rizzo does not get the commission, I'm not going to order anything. And my father was making a living. For 7 months, he was in the hospital visiting my brother, and he was getting business without even making calls. That's how long a way can go if you have likability in any business. Mm-hmm. And he did. So it's like a payback for him, and he was overwhelmed with this. And I remember his boss coming into the hospital and saying, Frank, just take it easy. Business is coming in. Take care of your son. That is the primary thing. And I just thought that was one of the coolest things. And I'll always remember that. That's what relationships are about. And that's what a personal relationship is, because that's the way my father was. Very personal. My father would call somebody over and in the middle of a conversation, just say, are you okay? Is everything? How's the family? Talk to me. I feel like something's wrong. And most of the time there wasn't. Person would explain it to my father and feel better. I've seen him do it.
Right.
Yeah. And, I hope we don't lose that, because that's part of the human spirit. That's the thing that connects us all.
It really is. And the fact of the matter is, the name of the show is How Relationships Affect Your Life.
Yeah.
And both of those stories from Doug, you, and what your father did for that man so he didn't lose his home.
Oh,
How did that affect his life? And of course, he's loyal to your company because your company was loyal to him. And then Steve, the story about your dad, clearly he had great relationships And then they came back and kind of like paid it forward to him.
Yeah.
And that had an effect on his life.
Yeah, and not only that, it affects the people that are doing it for you. You know how wonderful it must have made them feel that they're doing something for someone? It's a connect. That's one of the things that make us realize that the four of us are connected in some way. We all are. It's these little acts of kindness, to get, I don't care what anybody says. People say separate your personal life from your professional life. I think that's bullshit. You can't, because both of them are parts of you that make up the whole. And if we would all take a lesson on it being more personal in your business, I think business becomes a lot easier and more palatable for everyone to experience.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. Yeah. I interviewed my first book, this book right here, which was, all about Little Giant, and the things I learned, the leadership principles and the strategies I learned from my dad, which were amazing. I interviewed about 40 people for this book, and one ex-employee that he's retired now in logistics, he said something to me which kind of blew my mind. He goes, "I knew your dad loved me so much. And because he loved me and showed that love to me," he goes, "I wanted to work extra hard for him because I didn't want to disappoint him." And I thought, holy cow, so Hal Wing was so good to his people and loved them and helped them and served them and helped him grow, that they wanted to not disappoint him. And so they worked extra hard for him. And he was a huge success because he had all these wonderful people that he was building, but yet then they were helping him build the company, so it just came full circle, and they were growing as well, they were learning things. And so it's amazing how that works, where here was my dad helping people, giving them opportunities to work for him, some of them that couldn't get jobs anywhere else, and they were growing as humans, and they realized, this guy loves me and I'm going to work my rear end off for him.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, we're not meant to go at this life alone. I mean, we are really nothing on our own. We need one another, and these relationships are so important. And I think it's interesting how so much in business these days, like you said, Steve, it's so much about just business and just keep it like, get the data, this. It takes the emotion out of it, and it kind of creates a selfish atmosphere where everyone's just trying to climb the ladder, Doug, on their own. And, and that's what I said in one of my posts, because I won a ladder. So I was watching Ken Walls's show, and Doug was talking about his new book, The Giver, and they were giving away, right? The Giver was giving away a ladder, and I won it. And I thought, this has so much symbolism. Like, you want to climb the ladder, but make sure you have a ladder. Your ladder is stable and secure and has an amazing foundation. Don't climb the wrong ladder. You're going to fall. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So we need one another, and we need the right people who really care.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, one of the great stories I learned from my dad was just how he treated people. And here's a great story for you. One year, my dad calls me in, and he says, there's a gentleman, he's passed away now, worked for us for several years, but he had to be let go. And my dad pulls me in, he says, "Hey, I had to let Lynn go today." And he looks at me, and I could tell that he was sad that he had to let this employee go. And he goes, "I want you to do me a favor." He said, "It's like 2 weeks till Christmas time." And he goes, "He's not going to have a very good Christmas. He's got 2 or 3 little kids." And he says, "I feel really bad about this." And he says, "Will you take this check over and to his house?" And he had it in an envelope. And he says, "And wish them a Merry Christmas from me, and hand it to Lynn." This guy was like 6'6" and probably weighed about 280 pounds. I'm 5'7" and weigh about 170 pounds. And I thought, this guy just got fired. I'm going to go to his house, and he's going to pound me into the ground. And I only lived about 5 miles from him. So I said, "Yeah, sure, Dad, I'll go ahead and give it to him." So I go over to his house. His little daughter answers the door. And is your father home? Yes. He comes to the door, and he sees me, and he's got this look in his eye that he's not too happy to see me. And I look at him, and I said, I wanted to give you this from my father. He asked me to wish you a Merry Christmas, and we hope you have a great Christmas. I hand it to him. He takes it and kind of closes the door pretty abruptly, and it's kind of, oh, thank you, and but I wonder how he felt when he opened that check, opened that envelope and realized, wow, I just got laid off from this company. I got fired from this company, and the boss cared enough about me to give me this check for $5,000 or whatever it was for Christmas. But what I learned from that was, here's my dad, he cared about his people, even those that he had to let go, and he wanted to make sure that they were taken care of. And I thought, wow, he's got such a big heart, a giving heart. And so I was around this amazing human for all of my business career, and just was able to watch him and my mom. I mean, when my dad died, my mother didn't have a driver's license ever because she had bad eyes. And every Christmas she would call me up to her house, and she would give me these little envelopes with widows' names and addresses on it, and say, I want you to drop these off to all these widows. And there was money in there for Christmas. So I grew up with these amazing parents that were such givers, and that were always thinking about other people, and they wanted other people to have a good life, And so it was just, I had a great childhood, and I just had amazing parents that just gave back. It was incredible.
Wow.
Amazing.
You've given a considerable, go ahead, Deb, I'm sorry.
No, I just was expressing that I think that that's amazing that you had, and Doug, that you took that surrounding and you were brought up with that, and you're continuing to pay it forward with what all you've learned. It's amazing.
I think, one thing I learned from my dad was that you have to look for opportunities to help people. These things don't just happen. Like Debbie knows this story. There's this incredible story in my first book, Giant Success, where my dad knew this lady from the bank, and I don't know to this day how he knew, but this lady at the bank, her husband worked in a big manufacturing facility, and there was this machine he was working on exploded and sent all this shrapnel into his body, and he was in shock. And one of the pieces of the shrapnel hit him right below his knee and almost severed off his leg at the knee. And so they rush him to the hospital. He's in critical condition. He's in shock. They're trying like heck to save his leg, because that was the most critical thing. But he had shrapnel in his chest, and he was in really bad shock. And this lady, Vicky, telling me this story, she said, I was in the emergency room with Steve, and I looked up, and she said, there's your dad. She goes, I don't know how he found out. I don't even know how he got in the emergency room. Try to go in an ICU sometime and just walk in. And so she goes, she was in such shock. She goes, how did you get in here? And my dad looked at her and said, that was easy. I just told him that Steve was my brother.
Oh,
wow.
And sorry about the emotions, but and then he disappears for a second. My dad disappears for a second. And she says, he came in and he left for a second, and then he came back. And she said, she goes, nobody really realized, because they were just trying to save Steve's leg and stabilize him. But she said his face was all black with soot, and his arms had black all over him. And she says, your dad goes and gets a washcloth with soap and water and gently washes his face.
Wow.
And his arms off. And then she says he leans down to Steve's ear and said, you really are my brother. And when you get out of here, you are going to work for me.
Wow.
mm-hmm.
So anyway, this story, what's incredible about this story is he leaves. He makes a quick entrance, tells him he's his brother, sneaks into the emergency room, provides this little act of love and service to him, tells him, you're working for me. Well, what happened in this story was they had to amputate his leg. They couldn't save it. Steve's in depression. I mean, he's just in depression. He goes home, and the very day, again, how does my dad know this? The very day he goes home, he's depressed, walks into his house. The first person that calls was Hal Wing. Steve, how you doing? Well, Hal, I'm afraid I won't be able to work for you. I lost my leg. I guess I'll have to go on disability. And again, here's Mr. Wing. Here's Hal Wing, his thinking, his quick thinking. He says, Steve, you can answer the phone, can't you? Well, yes. Well, good. When you're ready, you come to work for me. This gentleman came to work for our company, finished out his career with our company. And, you know, he could have easily stayed home and collected unemployment, disability. But Hal's like, no, you're going to come work. And he grew as a person, got a prosthetic leg, had a great career. And that story is incredible. How did Hal Wing know Steve was in the hospital that day? How did he know when he left the hospital? And so I think we have to really look for opportunities to help people and serve people. And if we look for them every day, we're going to be able to find people to help. And my dad had this great gift of doing that. And to this day, I still don't know how he did it, but he was incredible.
Well, first of all, that's another great story. I'm so glad. I'm so glad we have you as a guest. Don't ever apologize for your emotions, because that's what it's all about. I don't know how you can tell that story without.
Right.
I was getting emotional just listening to you. That's such a great story. One of the things that your dad did is that little act of kindness not only enabled this guy, Steve, to go to work for your father, but it probably set a precedence for how he related to his family and other people, because somebody didn't give up hope on him.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Right? Someone still saw value, and that one little act of kindness can go. And we don't know. No one knows.
Yeah.
It's that one little spark that it can ignite so much optimism in a person that it could just make a difference personally, professionally, every facet of their life.
Yeah, I think, here's something that all of us can do every day. Like today I went into Einstein's Bagels. I go usually every morning and get 2 bagels. And I always try to hold the door open for somebody. And it really surprises a lot of people. I think that the old-fashioned manners that we used to have, we grew up, especially opening doors for women and saying hello to people, little things like that. Sometimes people are in shock. They kind of look at you like, what does this guy want? So it's almost like they're taken back by it. Like, why is he saying hi to me? And so sometimes I'll be in a restaurant or something, and I'll be grabbing something or a store, and I'll pay for something, maybe a guy that's behind me or something. I'll say, hey, put his on mine. Now, one of the funnest things to do, try this next time you go out to dinner, is look around and see if there's somebody that you can buy their meal for them. And about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I was in having breakfast with somebody, and I saw this little old guy. He was all alone. His wife had probably passed away. He was probably 80 years old. He's eating his oatmeal, and he's got a glass of orange juice and toast and stuff. And I said to my waitress very calmly, I said, hey, I'd like to pay for his breakfast. And so she, oh, okay, I can do that, And what was really neat about it is it just makes you feel so good in here. But so he went to pay, and she goes, well, somebody's paid for you. And he's looking around, he's in shock. He's in total shock. And he's kind of smiling. It was so fun to watch this guy looking around like, okay, who is it that paid for me? And you do it totally anonymously. And that's what in this book, The Giver, the new book that I've written, it's a fiction book, which was really incredible. I met Mark Victor Hansen, and he's like, Doug, you have these amazing stories. And he says, let's write a series of books, fictional books. And he says, people are going to love this. Coming out of COVID, people need to hear about this. This is going to help people, feel good, and it'll help them to go out and do the same thing. And so anyway, I'm really excited about this book because the book is filled with, so what happens in this book is the father of the company in this book ends up getting cancer and passing away. And his son's got an MBA from let me think of it. I just lost my train of thought. But anyway, he's got an MBA from like an Ivy League school.
Harvard.
And it's not that one. It's another one.
Princeton.
Sorry, I just had a brain.
Play a game. That's okay.
So, and this son is just consumed with, we got to make money. We got to make profits. And anyway, and he's just like, he takes over the business, and he finds out that his dad is this huge giver, and he does all these things anonymously. And slowly but surely, this man changes from let's just make lots of money and get wealthy, and he becomes a giver. Because people are coming up to him, starting at the funeral. People are coming up and saying, your dad did this for me. And he's like, what? And he didn't know about all these things, about all these people that he'd helped and blessed. In the company, he finds out that he had these 2 assistants working for him. His father did. And all they would do is go out and help people and do things for them, whether it was, they needed help or just whatever, provide jobs. And so slowly but surely, the son transforms into his father. And at the end of the book, the father or the son goes to visit his father at where he's buried, and he has a little conversation with him, and it's really, really cool. And he slowly figures out that the money, the material things, the houses, all those things don't matter. It's the giving, right? It's helping, serving, loving, giving people opportunities. And so that's how the story ends, is that this son does this huge transformation, and he becomes like his father. So it's a really cool story.
Where can they get your book?
The book is going to be available November 15th. And it'll be obviously available through Amazon and through, it's through Mark Victor Hansen Library, but also on DougWing.com. I also have DougWingBooks.com now, where you can order both of my books, but DougWing.com has it on there, and you can already place your order on it.
Sounds like a great book.
It's going to be really good. I never thought I would write books. And I remember the first time I started telling Jeffrey Gitomer these stories about giant success. And he looked at me one day. I think I went down to North Carolina to talk to him. And he said, this book is going to be a best-selling book. And I kind of laughed. And he goes, no. And you know how Jeffrey is. He uses colorful language. And he says, no.
That's such a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
He said, this is going to be, I promise you, write this book. It's going to be a bestseller. And he was right? It was number 1 on Amazon. And the funny thing about that book is I was in a category at the same time Ben Stein was writing a book, and it came out at the same time. I don't know if you know Ben Stein, but he's on Fox News. He was in Ferris Bueller.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, so Ben Stein was number 3, and Giant Success was number 1 for weeks. I was beating him. I remember I was driving down the road one time, and I said something to myself. I go, I'm beating Ben Stein.
That's awesome feeling.
I was just like, I can't believe this, but Jeffrey was right. And then when I met Mark Victor Hansen, we started talking about these other things. He goes, Doug, this book is going to be amazing. And then Ken Walls wrote the foreword to this book. And he said, dude, this book is going to be number 1. It's going to be a bestseller. It's going to be amazing. And I don't think I believed it. But it wouldn't surprise me. And again, it has nothing to do with me, because some of the stories in the book are related. We've changed them with different
Sure.
people, obviously, but then other ones we just created. And so, but it's all about giving. And because of that, the book has a chance to be very successful, because the principles in it are just amazing. And we can't go wrong when we give,
No, you're gonna love our next episode, because it's called Acts of Kindness. And
yeah. I don't know how long the show goes, but I was going to tell you one other story.
Please.
So my dad had to fire another guy, and so this guy's name was Danny Miller, and he's still alive. He's such a good guy. And I met him, and he was wearing this suit, and I said, where did you get this suit? It's really a nice suit. It looks familiar. And he goes, your dad gave me this suit. And he goes, I'm going to be buried in this suit. But anyway, so my dad, as I was interviewing Danny Miller, he said, I deserve to be fired. And he goes, and your dad fired me. And he goes, what was really incredible is your dad didn't give up on me. He goes, he kept trying to call me. I would see on caller ID who it was, and I would ignore it. And he goes, and then one day he goes, I got a check in the mail. And he goes, and then the next month I got another check. And he goes, and then the next month I got another check, and your dad kept trying to call me. And he goes, finally, 3 or 4 months go by. I was getting these checks, and I finally took your dad's call, and I said, Hal, why are you sending me checks? I haven't worked for you for 4 months. And he goes, Danny, he goes, that big customer you were working on, that big account came through, and I'm going to pay you on this for 1 year. And his mind was blown away. And he goes, I couldn't be mad at your dad any longer. He was back to being one of my best friends. He goes, he didn't have to do that. And then he goes, after that, he said, your dad talked to me. He gave me the confidence to start my own business. He goes, I still have this business today. And so even in firing someone, Hal Wing remained friends, right? And continued to send him commission checks. He didn't have to do that.
Right.
But it was the right thing to do, and kept working with him, kept mentoring him. And he goes, I owe it all to Hal Wing. And he goes, I tried to be mad at him. I tried to ignore him, but he goes, he was just too kind and I couldn't do it. So it was pretty incredible.
That is a great story, because that's a lesson too. Your dad didn't want to have to fire people, but a good business person can't keep a schlep. So he obviously did that guy a favor. Fire you, but I'm going to continue to mentor you so you can become what you should,
Yeah, that's one thing I learned too, was I was pretty nice. And I learned quickly that I remember one time I called a guy in and I said, I'm going to have to let you go. And he looked at me and he goes, what took you so long? I knew you were going to fire me a long time ago. And so the lesson there was, when you know somebody has to be terminated, you better do it and don't wait around. And again, you can do it in a nice way and with a little softer landing, because, you never know. They're going to go and tell other people about, the company. And again, we're talking about people here. And is it going to really make a difference, if you gave a guy a nice little severance package, 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road? No.
Yeah, but you know what's crazy? I just thought of this, and I know we're getting close to probably wrapping up, but relationships, we don't have to think of relationships of being long-term either. So like, even though your dad had to fire someone, he also taught that person a lesson. And while he wasn't with the company any longer and they didn't have that business relationship, the lesson was learned, and your dad's input in that man's life taught a lesson. So even if we're doing something kind for someone that we know we're never going to see again, that's a mini relationship that just happened, and you're not going to continue that relationship, but how it affects someone from that point forward can be life-changing.
Well, yeah. And going back to Steve Rizzo's comment, is think about all the people that Hal Wing helped. Now, we'll never know. What if those other people, all those people he helped, what if they went and started giving and helping other people throughout their lives? The impact on that is just could be tremendous. We just don't know,
True.
Yeah.
That's Jerry Eisenhower's on here too.
It's so true. Wow. You know what? Doug, thank you for being on the show. You speak so eloquently. I'm happy. Both of your books, the new one sounds like it's going to kick ass and well deserved. Thanks for being on the show, man.
I appreciate being here. I mean, I all I do is tell stories, and I've gone around and done some speaking at businesses, and I'll tell you, I spoke at this, and just kind of in closing, I spoke at this recycling coalition, and there were these big burly guys there, that do all this. They run these recycling facilities, and I told that story. One of the stories I told was the hospital story. I had these burly grown men like me. They were in tears, and one gentleman walked up to me afterwards, and he goes, "I wanted to ask you a question, but I was so choked up and I was kind of embarrassed about it. I couldn't talk." And he goes, "Can I ask you the questions now?" And I said, "Yes." And so I've spoken at schools, and the kids just eat these stories up. I mean, they love it. And so I just enjoy talking about, what, we can all be nicer. We can be kinder. We can build people. We can help people. We can serve people. We can love people, and we can make a difference. And I love talking about, one of the greatest men I ever met, my father. He was so good at this, and I want to be like him someday. But
you already are.
It's been great. It's been really
you already are, and probably even then some. So Doug, you're a gift. It's so great to have you on the show.
It's been an honor. It's so good to, I mean, I watch your show all the time, Steve, and I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of neat to be on his show. And then I got contacted, and I was like, this has really been an honor. I do appreciate it.
I appreciate you saying that. And again, it's about relationships. It's because of Bruce that you're on the show. He's the one. And then I, heard all about you, and now you're here. So we definitely will have you back. Definitely have you back again. I suggest you get your ass in front of a lot more people and start speaking, because you can really make a difference. You really can. You have what it takes. It all comes from here. Everything comes from here with you, man. And I feel it. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess my invitation for everyone that listens to this is try to find somebody every day that you can help. It doesn't mean you have to give them your money. It can be your time, a smile, your talents, just a listening ear. But try to find somebody every day that you can help. And you know what? If you look for it, you're going to find it.
Yep. Look at your new title, Doug.
I'm going to do that on my website. I'm going to change it.
You really should. You really should.
And
I'm not going to call myself that. Steve's like, yep, you're on my show. I'm calling you that. I love it.
Well, you're both great. And I just appreciate both of you.
Well, we're going to have you back again really soon. So I appreciate you. And we'll leave you with this. If anything I can ever do for you, just don't hesitate. Let me know, and I'll do it.
Thank you both so much. Same here. If I can help you, let me know. I'll be glad to help.
Folks, don't forget to share this, and we love you all. And this was an excellent show, and I know a lot of people got a lot from this. Debbie, thank you so much for who you are and what you do. And Bruce, that'll be it. Until next time.
Thank you.